Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Wolfie's Wheels. In this episode we look at the Autosleeper Kingham, which we've now had for 6 months, and consider whether or not it was a good purchase. Do we like it? Don't we like it? Did we make a mistake? I don't know. Stay tuned and find out. So as we said in the intro, we've had the van now for the best part of 6 months, covered the thick end of 3,000 miles in it, and we spent 29 nights away in various parts of the country. The journey with the van started in Newark in May, where we picked the van up from SMC Motorhomes, a very good company to deal with, and we stayed nearby overnight just to make sure everything was working in the van, and we'll come back to that a bit later on. After that, a week or so later, we headed off to Sandringham, Norfolk site, Caravan and Camping Club site. Had a great time there. And after Sandringham, we went to a site we like, Stratford-on-Avon. It's right by the river. You can walk into Stratford itself, great time there. And then we had the opportunity to go to a big national Abarth meet at Northampton. So we stayed at St Neots, which was a very nice site as well. The next trip after that being in the middle of July to Goodwood for the Festival of Speed. I didn't take any photos on site there, but as you can see from the picture, we'd done 1,700 miles by then, and that's just a couple of months. One thing and another, we didn't use the van again until middle of September, when we went to the Goodwood Revival, where we camped off-grid, which was interesting. And I found Anne looking extremely glamorous as this 60s biker chick. And the trip after that was to Tewkesbury, where there was a big meeting of caravanning and camping with Sighthounds and Greyhounds, which is a Facebook group which we belong to. And again, I didn't take any photos of that. And from there, because we were down in Tewkesbury, we went over to Slimbridge, and then up to Hay-on-Wye, and then came home. So, as I say, 3,000 miles just under, and 29 nights. What have we learned? What do we like? What don't we like? What worked? What fell off? What didn't fall off? So if we kick off in the cab area, something we really do like. We like the overall way the van drives. We had A-classes before and hadn't realised until we had this van how much tighter a panel van conversion drives compared with an A-class. Sure, you haven't got the internal space perhaps, it doesn't look as impressive a vehicle, but for our needs, actually I think the panel van is great. Not only do we use it a bit more probably than we used to, but also we take the van out during the days, whereas before we tended to turn up on site and stay for a couple of days and go on public transport. We'll now nip in and out of the site in the van as and when we need to. So as I say, it drives really well, handles really well, as you can see from the picture. Fuel consumption is very good really, 33 and a bit over the mileage we've done. Relatively tight engine, quite happy with that. So it's economical, it drives well, it's pretty quiet, and overall it's a nice thing to drive. However, not so good perhaps is the driving position. We both find it a little bit high in terms of the seat. I think it's because the seats themselves are swivel seats, so they've got a plate underneath it. So I think they're a bit higher than a normal Seville based standard seat. And I kind of catch my knees a bit on the bottom of the steering wheel, no matter what position I have the seat and the steering wheel in. However, it's not a problem. To be honest, the driving position we found a bit awkward in the previous ones as well, so I think it's our shape compared with the Seville based van. However, somewhat less impressive as part of the standard cab equipment is actually the inbuilt sat-nav, which is provided by Peugeot, I guess, nothing to do with Autosleepers, and the routing on it is debatable to say the least. It will take you down some stupidly narrow roads. The van should know its own size, but it will say take the next right, and it says not suitable for vehicles over 2 metres, which clearly this is, not suitable for HGVs and other things like that, all simply to save maybe, I don't know, 50 yards at a junction. We really don't like it, and generally use a map as well as a sat nav, and whoever is in the passenger seat will sort of say, yeah, just ignore the sat nav, keep going straight on to the main junction and turn that way. And try as I might, I've not been able to find any settings in the sat nav which enable me to change the route to restrict certain roads other than motorways. So I think going forward next year we're just probably going to use a standalone Garmin I bought when we had the Morgan. That seems to be a very good sat nav. So we're not really impressed at all with the inbuilt sat nav. And something else which is a bit odd with the van is at the back here in the roof you've got 2 lovely built-in speakers, but yet the radio itself won't play for more than 20 minutes without switching itself off. It plays on Habitation battery. Now that I can actually understand, to protect the Hab battery, but in the previous ones we've had, motorhomes we've had, there's been a switch which enables you to change the power source of the dash radio from the car battery, van battery, to the leisure battery. And that I think is a poor omission on the part of Autosleepers, and is something which I would definitely consider having done. At the moment we just bring a separate Bluetooth speaker, so it's not, we can get round it, but what's the point in building these speakers in if you can't use them? It's just a bit weird. And while we're on slightly puzzling design features, this van comes with air assisted suspension, which is useful. However, I think the placement of topping it up hasn't been that well thought through. See here, this is where the air suspension sits, and you top up the left-hand side with that Schrader valve there, and the right-hand one with this Schrader valve here, which is probably doesn't come out quite how awkward it is on film, but believe me, not that easy. And interestingly, both sides have lost pressure in the time that we've had it, because they're not actually in the green, so I'm going to have to top that up somehow at some point. So if we now turn our attention to the habitation area, what do we like, what don't we like? Well, I mean, to be honest, the layout on this van is absolutely amazing for 2 people. We really like it. I mean, as I said before, previous motorhomes we've had have actually physically been bigger, but the amount of floor space they've had and the flexibility of the layout hasn't been as good as this van. So overall we are absolutely delighted with the layout of the van, and to be fair, it's the main reason we chose it. In fact, you can see from a picture here, I took this picture in 2018 when we were at a motorhome show, and we were very happy with the van we had at the time, but you know what it's like, you're always looking and think, well, what catches my eye? And strangely, this Kingham did, as did the models by IH. And I might actually do a video another time about why we chose the Autosleeper over an IH. It's a very similar price point, and the reputation of IH is much better. So why did we choose an Autosleeper? Could be an interesting film. Anyhow, overall we really like it. I mean, at night time, or when we're lounging around, Anne tends to sit on the big settee, feet up, sort of facing down that way, watching the TV, while I lounge in the front with my feet up, again watching TV, reading a book, or whatever. And I'll come back to one of the problems of lounging like this a little bit later on in the video. But like any motorhome, it's not all plain sailing, and everything is a compromise, and there are some things that we actually aren't so keen on. But I would say at this point, if you're looking for me to come up with some major showstoppers, to be honest, there aren't any. These are just things which we think could be better, slash should be better, slash slightly annoy us. Start with the cooker, which is badged triplex, and it has 3 gas hobs on it, which you think, well, that's great, and to be fair, it is. But we're used to having 3 gas hobs, one there, and one here, and an electric ring just here, which is really useful when you're on mains hookup for putting the kettle on all the time. We drink a lot of tea and coffee, you see, so we do tend to use that a lot. And I don't quite, it just seems a bit cheapskate to just put the 3 gas hobs on. Nothing wrong with it. Worth complaining about? No. Worth changing? Definitely not. And interestingly, we appear to have a loose screw, which I'll have to put back in. Don't quite know what's happening there. And while we're talking about the cooker, something else which I'm not at all keen on, and neither of us have been able to work this out, is with the grill. It appears to be on or off, and not controllable in the level of heat that it puts out, or length of flame. Not really a problem for us because we tend to only use a grill for making toast, so not a massive problem. But again, not great. So, and both of those are features which we had no way of knowing about. Well, we could have seen the cooker top, I suppose, quite obviously, but we didn't know about the grill before we bought the van. But it wouldn't have stopped us buying it, and neither would the next 2 things we don't like. And that is the fact that the water tank and the wastewater tank are actually pretty small. The freshwater tank is only 60 litres and the waste, I think, is a similar sort of size. I'll put it on about here. And to be honest, it's a little bit tight. Previous vans have had over 100 litres, about 110 litres of fresh water and 80 odd litres of waste. And it does mean that you aren't continually filling and refilling the van. So it's a bit of a pain. But we knew that when we bought it. Am I going to do anything about it in terms of looking to see if I can upgrade to a bigger fresh and wastewater tank? Of course I'm not. Just going to live with it, get around it and work our way around it like we currently do. And while we're talking about the water tank, I'm not over happy with the way the frost protection works on the water tank. It's sort of an electric heater element that goes somehow that you have to remember to turn on if it's going to be cold. I don't know what would happen if you didn't. I don't know how well it actually protects the pipes, or is it just the tank that's heated. But it doesn't seem to me to be a great solution. However, having said that, from our angle, we tend not to use the van in extreme climate conditions. We don't go skiing, and I know a lot of guys use their motorhomes to go skiing in severely cold temperatures in Europe. That's not us. So I don't think it would be a problem, but it's not the world's best solution. But as I say, everything's a compromise, and you have to think about the things that you can live with and can't live with. And we can live with that one, but it's just not absolutely ideal. And while we're talking about not absolutely ideal, in the van there is actually only one USB charge point that works when the van isn't running, and that's at the back, which is convenient enough. There's not a problem with that. I mean, there are plenty of 3-pin plugs, so we can just use a 3-pin plug with the adapter, the plug with a lead going in the back of it. But I would prefer more USBs that were live, running from the leisure battery. And again, when I look at getting the radio flick switch sorted out, I will probably also look at getting more, at least one more, if not 2 USB charge ports put in the habitation area. Again, no biggie, but these are things you learn as you use in the van. Other sort of interesting features are you get these nice fly screens on the windows which you can pull down, so you can have the window ventilation. Can't do it with one hand, but this window here opens, and you have the fly screen down so you get a bit of ventilation in. However, you can't open the door fully like that and have a fly screen on it. There's no fly screen. I have seen motorhomes that have got a fly screen sort of filling in this sort of whole area here, and I think that would be a really good thing to have, because without it, you've got the door open, which is great. You get a great view out of the door, but there's no. It'd be nice if you could have some sort of, let's say, fly screen, stop bugs getting in, but just to take that cool edge off of the wind. And that is again something I might well look into having fitted. Some do motorhomes, not auto sleepers, but there are makes of motorhome. I think the Wild Axe does have it, so I think they're fittable, and one to look into for the future. But significantly less good than that is in fact how Whale or Autosleeper, I don't actually know who it is, but one of them, arranged for the frost protection on the hot water boiler to be manipulated. In here you can see this is the frost protection switch, and here is the pipe that feeds the cold water. And to make this switch move, you have to sort of literally force these pipes out of the way. And I just think that smacks of penny pinching by Autosleeper by not putting a little bit more pipe work in there, or securing it in a different way so that that switch moves easily and freely. To be honest, I think it's a bit rubbish that it doesn't automatically frost drain itself. All the other boilers I've encountered do. This one doesn't. It's just another job you have to remember to do. Again, no biggie, but that is just poor. Now, I said I'd come back to one of the issues regarding lounging in the front of the van, as I tend to do, and that is that when it's a bit chillier in the evenings, the heating doesn't really heat this cab area at all. And in fact, it's damn cold, to the extent that I will often end up sitting under a blanket and it's quite perfectly warm in the main part of the van. I think the heating that's installed in this van is not the world's best by any stretch of the imagination. There are only 2 vents that come into the whole van, which is a bit bad. I don't know why they couldn't have incorporated somehow some more heating in the cab area just to make the whole van usable as it's meant to be. Again, nothing I can do about that, but that is one of those things that you just don't know about until you start using the van in earnest, whoever earnest might be. It's not great, not great. And to be fair, we've had significant issues with the heating on this van as well. And the van actually goes back next week, that's November 2021, back to SMC for yet another visit. Because whilst the van heating does work, you might be able to hear it heating in the background, I don't know. It is toasty and warm in here at the moment. We've had a problem since day one that if you're running the boiler, the heater on gas, once it reaches temperature, it will turn itself off, and that's great. That's what it's meant to do. But then it won't relight itself. And that causes pretty major headaches if you're off grid, as we were at Goodwood, where I generally got up every 2 hours in the night because it was getting so cold. I could feel I was cold in bed and had to get up and restart the heating, and that's not really what it's meant to be about. Most of the season we've got round it because it's either been warm or we've been on mains hookup and just run it on electric. But I've got every confidence in SMC and Wales at getting to the bottom of that problem. SMC have been very good. There was a bit of an internal communication cock-up in the early days. Once that's resolved, to be honest, they can't do more for me, and I'm very happy to be one of their customers. So let's keep our fingers crossed that that can get sorted out and it will really make the van very different, although of course it won't cure the fact that I've got a cold cab. That's just one of those things. And again, as I say, these are things you don't know when you buy the van. It only comes to light when you use it. So let's turn our attention now to the outside of the van. And I still think it's a really good looking van. There are a couple of things which, again, I don't like. The extensive use of this plastic here. It looks a bit shabby sort of already. I've got some stuff that my local detailer suggested I used, which is meant to keep it going back to black. I'll put the information about that in the description as to what it is. I can't remember off the top of my head. But there's an awful lot of it, and it's not great. But one thing we really do like, however, are these dark windows. I mean, we've got a light on in there at the moment above the cooker. You can just about make it out, I think. I was trying to make you see in, but you know, I'm stood outside the van with my nose pressed against it and I can barely see in. And certainly sort of from this distance, you've got no chance of seeing in through these windows, which is really useful for when you're getting dressed and that in the morning. Earlier, it's all about compromises, and one of the compromises with this van is it's a van. So you open the back doors thusly, and thusly enables you to access the toilet compartment for emptying the cassette. Now, as you can see from there, the back of the van is completely exposed and it's currently raining. You might not be able to see that in the film, but it is. And of course, stuff in the back of the van is getting wet, and it is a compromise. There's nothing anyone can do about that. It's just how life is. And another how life is situation arises with this underbed storage, which is basically the storage that you've got in the van for your mucky stuff like your leads and buckets and crap like that. But what it does mean is that if you are taking a barbecue with you on your travels, the barbecue has to live here under the bed. And barbecues, in my experience, are smelly, horrible things. So currently we are travelling around without a barbecue. I'd like to have one because it's a good way of filling a few hours in the evening. It's nothing nicer, I think, than sitting outside the van cooking up some steaks and chicken on the barbecue. But I can't take one, I don't think, at the moment, because I've got to find a way of taking one where I'm not laying on top of a greasy, smelly pit of foulness. There are, however, some really well thought out features on this van, and one of the little hidden things which I didn't know about until very recently, and you might or might not know about, but if you do, great, and if you don't, well, tune in and watch this one. I've often wondered what this little Schrader valve here, which sticks out underneath the back bumper, what's that for? And the answer is, in an incredibly well thought out piece of design, the spare wheel on this van lives outside and underneath. And obviously one of the things you should do is make sure that the pressure in that spare wheel is okay, because if not, when you come to use it, it will be flat. That little valve is actually attached to the valve of the tyre, so that you can very easily check the pressure of your spare wheel. What a great bit of design, I think. It's just these little things, but that is just fantastic. So there we have a quick look round there of the things that we've discovered we do and don't like during 29 nights, 3,000 miles of usage. And in summary, we are made up with this van. We just love the layout. It really does work well for us. I'm not saying it's going to suit everybody. Of course it won't. It's only a 2-berth. But for us, it's absolutely perfect. There are no showstoppers at all with it. As I say, there's a few things which I wish I'd known about, but would have made no difference to whether I bought it or not had I known. And the heating, I think, is going to get itself sorted out by SMC and Whale. Whale are liaising with SMC, and Autosleepers themselves are aware of the issue. So every confidence in that getting sorted in very short order. And we're very much looking forward to next season. Reason I say next season is because, to be honest with you, I just don't have any plans to go away again this year. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe, hit that bell icon, and you'll get notified as to when the next videos come up. Tell your mates, share it, whatever. And I look forward to seeing you in a future episode of Wolfie's Wheels. Bye.